In the opening scene of the movie, Barry Allen is seen in an eatery as he tries purchasing an unusually large serving of food. The waiter on duty takes his order while making idle talk with Barry. Batman calls Barry at that moment and asks him to save some people who were entrapped in a crumbling hospital. Barry takes one last look at his food, which was taking an unusually long time to prepare, and zooms off. Barry runs into some fans outside the restaurant and asks one of them to throw him her chocolate. The chocolate hits his helmet and falls to the ground, but Barry swallows his pride and musters himself before speeding off. Turns out that he had enough strength for a fasted workout. Barry arrives at the hospital and saves a nurse and some babies from the crumbling building. But before saving them, he made sure to steal some cereal from the baby's cot. 'Cause you know what they always say, all work and no food makes Flash a slow snail. After ensuring that the nurse and the babies were okay, Barry aids Batman and Wonder Woman in capturing a villain. After they complete this task, Batman and Wonder Woman flirt with each other, but Barry ruins the mood by telling them that he's a virgin. Barry returns to the restaurant for his breakfast and gives the waiter a bombastic side-eye before walking off with his food. He gets in trouble with his boss, who closes a case he's working on. While arguing with his boss about this, Barry runs into Iris, a former classmate whom he had feelings for. She asks about his mother's murder, whether he believes that his father is innocent. Barry is angered by her insinuations and Iris apologizes. Barry recalls that his mother had forgotten a can of tomatoes at the supermarket, and she had asked his father to go back for it. Little Barry watches his father from his window as he returns with the can of tomatoes, only to discover that his wife had been killed. Barry races around to cool off his anger, but he incidentally opens up the Speed Force, and Barry is stunned to learn that he can time travel. He tells Bruce Wayne, the Batman, about his discoveries, but Bruce warns him against messing with time. On his way back home, Barry runs into Iris, who asks if she can talk with him. Barry invites her in, but before doing this, he clears up his room in record time. Too bad his effort failed, because his things came tumbling out of his wardrobe as they walked in. While they discuss, Iris apologizes for her insinuations about his mother's murder and talks about how things could have been so different if they could only turn the hands of time. Suddenly, Barry realizes that he can turn the hands of time. With all thoughts of a romantic evening far from his head, he rushes into the Speed Force and goes back in time, where he drops the forgotten can of tomato in his mom's cart. On his way back to the present, Barry is kicked into a different timeline by a speedster in a dark suit. Barry enters his home and is shocked to see his mom, who calls him Monkey, his pet name. His mother comments about how he had cut his hair short, while his dad remarks that he looked older. Barry sees his past self strolling into the house and tries hard to keep him from screaming. He later finds out that the past Barry has no powers and is also a much younger and goofier version of himself, who blackmails him into entertaining him with his powers. Barry suddenly realizes that he would lose his powers and the ability to return to the present if the past Barry has no powers, so he rushes him to Star Labs. The past Barry is fascinated by a process called phasing, where Barry could wear himself through any obstacle. After learning that he would have to be electrocuted before getting his powers, the past Barry develops cold feet. But before he can escape, Barry is struck by lightning, which penetrated through him and strikes the past Barry. Barry loses a tooth and his powers, but he glues it back to his gum. The past Barry is excited to have gotten his powers, but he attracts the attention of the guards who chase after them. Barry sadly realizes that he can no longer run fast, but the past Barry asks him for a way out. Barry tells him that they can only escape by phasing out of the building, but that would be impossible, because phasing is a technique that requires many years of determination to learn. Surprisingly, the past Barry masters phasing like a pro and wears them out of there. After they escape, the past Barry takes his powers for a test run. He ends up causing an accident on the city streets. The following day, Flash gives Barry his suit to prevent him from becoming the Burning Man, which he had done the other day, and tells him that the suit will absorb his body heat. They walk into a cafe where they learn that a Kryptonian named General Zod was looking for Superman. Barry tries to find the other members of the League to ask for their help in stopping Zod, but he is stunned to find out there is no Justice League. They return home and meet the past Barry's friends, who reveal that superheroes didn't exist, except Batman, who had gone incognito for years. Barry takes the past Barry to Bruce Wayne's residence, but he's surprised when they're attacked by an old man with a frying pan. They later discover that this old man is actually Batman, but he had retired since Gotham was free from crimes. Barry tells Batman everything that had occurred and how they needed his help with defeating General Zod, but Batman refuses. Barry decides to use Batman's technology to find Superman, but he discovers that a kryptonite is being held hostage in Russia. He sends his last heartful message to Batman, who changes his mind and flies them to Russia. In Russia, they discover a female prisoner that had been kept hostage and are unable to find Superman. They rescue the female prisoner, but the past Barry gets injured and they're cornered by the Russians. Batman tells Barry that they should try their hardest possible best not to die, but the female Kryptonian suddenly stands up and takes down all the guards with a few jabs of her hands. They take the Kryptonian back to Batman's hideout, where Barry tries to recover his powers, but the lightning crushes him. For a minute, all hope is lost as the past Barry assumes that Barry has turned into barbecue, but Supergirl arrives and helps him heal. After Barry regains his powers, Batman and Supergirl join hands with the two Barrys who attack General Zod and his men. But Supergirl died, and the two Barrys go back in time to save her. The four heroes rescue the Earth, and they celebrate. The past Barry is overcome by his power to change time, but Barry tries explaining that time isn't something to be messed with. In a moment filled with emotions, Barry reveals that their mother had died in the future, but his actions to change history had already altered the lives of countless others. The Speedster in the dark suit appears and reveals that he is an older version of the past Barry, who had traveled back in time to rescue their mother on countless occasions. The past Barry realizes the gravity of his actions and kills himself. This action affects the older version of himself, and Barry returns to the past for one last time. He shares a hug with his mother and cries before returning to the future. Barry realizes that it's the day of his father's appeal hearing and rushes over to court. He realizes that Bruce has gotten much clearer footage of his father as he was purchasing the can of tomatoes. His father's alibi is approved, and Barry's father is released. As Barry steps out of the court, he runs into Iris, who congratulates him on his father's release. Barry asks Iris out on a date, and she tells him that she would love to go out with him. After she leaves, Barry calls Batman and tells him they have a lot to discuss. He reveals that he had gone back in time to change some things, and Bruce tells him that he's walking over at the moment. Reporters flock to Batman's side and covers Barry's view of him, but as soon as Batman approaches him, Barry's jaw drops to the floor as he realizes that Batman was looking a lot more older since the last time he saw him. Batman asks why he has a puzzled expression on his face while Barry struggles to explain himself. He realizes that the joke is not lost on him and his front tooth comes off.